let's be clear. No one wants a strike. Say it again. No one wants a strike. But I respect workers' right to use their options under the collective bargaining system. And I understand the workers' frustration. Over generations, auto workers sacrificed so much to keep the industry alive and strong, especially through the economic crisis and the pandemic. Workers deserve a fair share of the benefits they help create for an enterprise.
So President Biden showing his support for the United Auto Workers following their decision to go on strike against the big three automakers around Detroit this week. Contract talks between the UAW and Ford, GM, and Stellantis fell apart as both sides, they were still far apart on salary increases and benefits. So how will this strike affect the U.S. economy under Bidenomics? Let's discuss. Joining us now is economist and former chair of the White House Council of Economic Advisors, Thomas Phillipson. We also have joining us media strategist, host of podcast What's Bugging Me, Dennis Neal. And we also have Melanie Collette here as well. She joined us in the last block. Thomas, I want to start with you. This is an interesting strike because it's limited to 3 plants for now, but this is about pay, it's about pensions, but it's also really about survival. You have electric vehicles, they require a lot more workers, less workers that is, to assemble, and the batteries, they're made in China. President Biden's EPA is basically forcing car companies to phase out gas engines and make everyone buy electric vehicles. So how do you feel this negotiation will play out? Do you think the workers are going to get what they're looking for?
Yeah, well, if they do get what they're looking for, they're basically digging their own grave here because, you know, these companies have labor costs that are about 50% higher than Tesla, let's say the leading EV manufacturer, obviously. And if they do get their way, those labor costs are going to be triple that of Tesla. So this is clearly not in their interest because they're going to lose their jobs even if they have higher benefits in the future if these demands actually comes through. Now, it's a limited amount of people. It's only about 10% of the labor force currently, about 13,000 people that are on strike. So I think the labor market implications of this is very, very small if it is at the current level and if it only lasts a typical strike, which is about a month, a little bit more than a month. This will have limited effect on the labor market.
Dennis, we know that EVs are expensive. They're heavily subsidized by the government, and so far they still don't have the range to go very far. Plus, there aren't really a lot of charging stations, especially in the rural areas as well. Will this Green New Deal ultimately mean, what will it mean for the Biden administration and the economy, the bottom line? Well, where do you see this going?
Okay, so a couple things. First of all, I think something like 80% of all car trips are less than 200 miles. So EVs are fine for that. Second, we just heard Tomas say that, oh my gosh, Detroit already has 50% higher costs per worker than Elon Musk and Tesla. And so what do you have the UAW coming in? We want 40% more over the next 5 years. How can you guys call yourselves a friend of Joe Biden if that's what you're going to do? If this economy goes into recession in an election year, no U.S. president has ever been reelected in a recession year. So I think Biden's in trouble. In the union, what happened to his allies?
Right. Melanie, what do you make of this? How long do you think this drags out? Do you think that the big three is going to, you know, make a deal here soon, or are they going to let this play out?
They sound like they are really dug in, and the 40% had me absolutely cracking up. I was like, who negotiates a contract that way? 40%, and they want to get things back that they gave up before. If their union was smart, in my opinion, they would have done that gradually rather than going for the gusto. But what do I know? I'm a private sector girl, but I do think that they're shooting themselves in the foot if they do get what they're asking for, because the economy is not built for it. As was mentioned earlier, EVs are kind of a disaster as far as the practicality of it all. So just from a pragmatic standpoint, I think it's a bad idea. And when you look at companies that are abroad, like Toyota and companies like that, they're going to have an opportunity to grab a greater share of the market because of the strike with the American companies.
Let's talk about the economy, because this will have an impact in the economy. It could be billions of dollars towards the economy. But the U.S. Consumer Price Index rose 0.6% in August, and that's the largest increase in the past 14 years. And yet the chair of the U.S. Council of Economic Advisors, Jared Bernstein, he's defending Bidenomics. Let's watch.
Not only has inflation come down, it's now growing more slowly than the pay of low and middle wage workers, meaning their buying power is increased. Now, our work isn't done for sure, but wages outpacing inflation is some of the breathing room that the president talks about.
So, Dennis, are they cherry picking their stats
gosh,
here?
of course.
Or the spin here is
Right.
terrible?
Well, yes, as every administration does, regardless of which party, of course. What he's missing there, old Jared Bernstein, is that the two pulse points we feel the most are when we go to fill up our gas tank and we go to fill up our shopping basket at the grocery store. And, you know, while they'll say that inflation's a lot less now, it's only 3% instead of 9%, yeah, but it's on top of much higher prices that went up when it was up 9%. And those prices aren't being cut and aren't going down, so everything will now compound on top of this higher level. And that's bad for the economy, and that's bad for Joe Biden.
Melanie, real quick, 10 seconds. What your takeaway from this?
The only thing that's a low price in a Bidenomics economy is audacity. But the absolute nerve for them to say that things are going very well and that the prices are super low, they are not. And they're completely out of touch with the American people.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thomas Phillipson, appreciate you coming on. Dennis Neal, appreciate it as well. Melanie, we got more to talk about a little bit later.